Alcatraz. Today we will learn about the history of the most secure prison island for dangerous criminals. In 1775, the Spaniard Juan Manuel de Ayala was the first to sail into San Francisco Bay. His team made a map of the bay and named it La Isla de los Alcatrazes. It is widely believed that the name could mean Island of Pelicans, because of the large number of these birds on the island. However, according to ornithologists, there are no pelican or puffin colonies on the island or nearby, but various species of cormorants and other large waterfowl are often seen. In 1828, the English geographer Captain Frederick Beechey mistakenly transferred the name of Alcatraz's island from Spanish maps to a neighboring island, now known as the location of the famous prison. In 1851, the U.S. Coast Guard Topographic Service shortened the name to Alcatraz. The discovery of gold in California in 1848 attracted thousands of ships to San Francisco Bay, creating an urgent need for a lighthouse. The gold rush created a need to protect the bay. In 1850, by decree of the President of the United States, construction of a fort began on the island, where more than 110 long-range guns were installed. The fort was later used to house prisoners. In 1861, the first prisoners of war of the Civil War from different states began to arrive on the island, and in 1898, as a result of the Spanish-American War, the number of prisoners of war increased from 26 to more than 450. In 1906, after an earthquake in San Francisco destroyed most of the city, hundreds of civilian prisoners were moved to the island for safety reasons. In 1912, a large prison building was constructed, and by 1920, the three-story structure was almost completely filled with prisoners. Due to the high maintenance costs associated with the location, the Ministry of Defense decided to close this famous prison in 1934, and it was transferred to the Ministry of Justice. During the Great Depression, the crime rate increased dramatically and the era of organized crime began. Large mafia families and individual gangs fought a war for spheres of influence, often targeting civilians and law enforcement officers. Gangsters controlled the power in cities, many officials received bribes and turned a blind eye to crimes. In response to the gangsters' crimes, the government decided to reopen Alcatraz, but as a federal prison. Alcatraz satisfied the main requirements: to house dangerous criminals far from society and to frighten other criminals who were still at large. During the reconstruction, only the foundation was left intact, and the building itself was completely rebuilt. In April 1934, the military prison received a new face and a new focus. The new prison needed a new warden. The Federal Bureau of Prisons selected James A. Johnston for the position. Johnston was chosen for his strict principles and humane approach to rehabilitating criminals to return them to society. He also became known for his reforms to benefit prisoners. Alcatraz was not sentenced to imprisonment by judges, but rather transferred particularly violent prisoners from other prisons. No one was allowed to voluntarily choose Alcatraz to serve their sentence. Although exceptions were made for some gangsters, including Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly and others, federal prison officials had the right to transfer any prisoner to Alcatraz. Contrary to popular belief, Alcatraz housed not only gangsters and particularly dangerous criminals. Alcatraz was filled from other prisons with fugitives and rebels or those who systematically violated the regime. There were gangsters, of course, but most of them were sentenced to death. In the early years of Alcatraz, Warden Johnston maintained a silence policy. Inmates were forced to refrain from making any sound for long periods of time, which many inmates considered the most severe punishment. There were many complaints demanding its abolition. There were rumors that several prisoners went crazy because of this rule. Later, the silence policy was abolished, and this is one of the few rule changes at Alcatraz. In the 29 years the prison has been in operation, there has probably not been a single successful escape. Given that 5 prisoners who have attempted to escape have never been found, either alive or dead, this is not a certainty. In total, 34 prisoners organized 14 escape attempts. 2 of them tried to escape twice. 7 were shot, 2 drowned, 5 went missing, and the rest were captured and returned to prison. 2 prisoners tried to sail away from the island, one in 1945 and the other in 1962. The most desperate escape attempt, called the Battle of Alcatraz, was made in 1946. During it, 3 prisoners and 2 guards were killed. 2 prisoners were later executed for their participation in the riot. June 1962, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers made a successful, still unconfirmed escape. On March 21, 1963, the Alcatraz prison was closed. According to the official version, this was done because the costs of keeping prisoners on the island were too high. The prison required repairs worth about $3 to $5 million. In addition, the maintenance of prisoners on the island was too expensive compared to the mainland prison, as everything had to be regularly imported from the mainland. In 1971, the island was made part of the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. In 1973, the island was opened to tourists, and now it is visited by about 1 million people every year. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, I recommend you to check out the channel and watch other videos.